does contain elements of self-harm that could be triggering to some. Now, death row is a nightmare to serial killers and axe murderers, but for an innocent man, it's a life of mental torture that the human spirit is not equipped to survive. John Grisham. Currently in the state of Texas, the torture is enacted upon the mentally ill, as those with severe mental illness, intellectual disabilities, and traumatic brain injuries are not exempt from capital punishment and are also subject to a trial system which denies them their constitutional rights. Now, I chose to study criminal justice to influence positive change and reform within our system. This particular issue is connected to me because I have a close relative who is currently incarcerated and suffering from mental disabilities. I myself also suffer from mental illness. So my goal today is to help you understand the injustices suffered by those with mental illness in Texas and encourage you to advocate for the fulfillment of their constitutional rights. So let's begin by taking a closer look at mental illness and why it should be exempt from individuals from capital punishment. Mental illness or mental disorders is actually a broad term, and it includes depression, anxiety disorders, schizophrenia, or PTSD. It affects mood, behavior, and thinking, and it can happen to anyone and be caused by things like brain chemistry, trauma, or even stressful life situations. In Texas, if you commit a crime and have one of these conditions, even if you're under a delusion at the time, you are not exempt from capital punishment. Now, an example of this was detailed in a March 2013 article of Texas Monthly that was entitled Trouble in Mind. It tells the story of Andre Thomas, a man who suffered from schizophrenia from childhood. Now, Andre Thomas, in 2004, believed he received a message from God that told him to stab the mother of his child, Laura Boren, and try to remove her heart. This he did, after which he proceeded to do the same to his 4-year-old son and Laura Boren's 1-year-old daughter. Now, while he was in police custody, Thomas insisted that they were still alive and not dead. He also mutilated himself by removing one of his eyes in an interpretation of scripture. After being subject to capital punishment, or the sentence of capital punishment, his condition grew worse on death row. Upon death row, Andre Thomas cut his throat and wrists and removed his other eye and ate it. It was only after that he was transferred to a psychiatric facility for treatment. Now, in addition to the injustice of sentencing a person with such an impairment to death, the entire legal process for sentencing doesn't ensure a fair trial. Starting with interrogation, those with mental illness could very well give a false confession that can lead to a wrongful conviction. During the trial, they cannot effectively contribute to their own defense and may deny that they have a mental illness. Attorneys often lack understanding and the experience to effectively represent such clients. And in order to appear competent before a jury, it is not uncommon for the mentally ill to be forcibly given psychiatric medications to appear competent. This results in the jury perceiving them as cold, distant, or remorseless. Now, in 2013, the American Bar Association evaluated the fairness of the capital punishment system in Texas, and one of their key findings was that whether or not the defendant is suffering from an intellectual disability, a condition formerly known as mental retardation, is actually decided by a jury using factors not accepted by any medical authority or clinical criteria. The mentally ill often waive important rights and even appeals because they're unable to comprehend them. So how do we ensure that all Texans receive their rights to a fair trial in sentencing? Well, change starts with awareness. So I encourage you to share this information with others. organizations that are lobbying for change. Such advocacy has already led to the prohibition of capital punishment in the state of Ohio. And without making our voices heard, how many of the 199 inmates currently on death row will be put to death because their actions were beyond their control or understanding? And justice only ends when we, the people, make it known we will no longer tolerate it. By advocating for change, we can ensure that everyone, including those with mental illness, receive a fair trial, and that those with severe mental illness, intellectual disorders, or traumatic brain injuries are exempt from capital punishment. Now, I would like to leave you with these thoughts. Because you and your family members are currently blessed with mental health, that may not always be the case. Life is unpredictable and there are no guarantees. So I implore you to speak up for those in need. And in doing so, you're also advocating for yourself, your loved ones, and the constitutional rights that have built our nation. Thank you.